You're listening to The KYLO Show, the podcast where we talk about how to keep your love on no matter what and why whole healthy families are going to save the world. And it starts right now.
Well, welcome everyone to The KYLO Show. This is our Fatherlessness series, and I've gathered with you a couple of the best fathers I know.
Yeah,
These would be the guys that are bringing it.
Come on.
Bringing it big, bringing it deep.
I didn't hear what he said just then. You want to hear it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, he might say it.
And both have an affirmation love language. That's there we go.
Just looking out for you.
Serpell and Christian Zamora are my teammates here at Loving on Purpose. We've been doing this for a while now. Guys, the whole topic of father, I mean, obviously we're getting our paradigm from our Heavenly Father that kind of showed me, as a guy that grew up without a dad, through the commitment of other men who said, I'm going to live Christ-like. I got to see what my father was trying to tell me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I got to experience what my father was, as I read the Bible, as I look at the life of Jesus, he's pointing us to the Father. But then I got to actually have a community of men around me that lived it so deeply, so consistently, so convincingly that it just drew me in. And I said, amen. This is what I want my life to look like. This is what I want my children to experience. This is what I want my wife to feel. I want my wife to feel what I see in your wife's eyes. And I want our children to grow up in a family where they are as secure and deeply loved as your children.
Yeah, so good.
Amen.
Come on. Well, it's on that note, I would say it's one of the reasons I'm here. I think this is a good thing for, like, I would say maybe even guys my age too. I'm 30, 34, and what I found myself, looking for that community of guys, I would get plugged into churches, and me and my wife kept looking around and going like, all our friends are like 60. Like, we have no other friends. Like, this is kind of weird. Like, it's not bad. There was a couple well-meaning guys, but then, now that I've learned more, is none that really wanted to take responsibility for my hunger level of learning. So I was kind of just floating around. And so what I thought was helpful was like these virtual fathers, these like, well, I'll just follow these guys online because I can do that. So and it kind of gives you this, and it's not bad, but it kind of gives you this false positive that you actually have a mentoring father relationship, but what it's void of is feedback and actual correction. And
true.
Am I doing this right? But young men need, am I doing this right? Is this how it works? And, I realized we ended up at the local church, Jesus Culture, and got asked to serve on a team with Ben and Brittany, and Ben was actually the first guy we met at the church, and it was really cool, me and my wife. But I had heard about Danny and read a book, Keep Your Love On. And I would eat up anything that came out of what you were doing. I had this Mount Rushmore of guys that I looked to, other than God the Father and Jesus, and reading my Bible. It was like these four men whose lives there's something about their life that I wanted to emulate. But then I kept running into this issue of I'm not actually next to them. Then I found out I was actually next to you. I was pretty close to you. I didn't know it. So working with Ben and Brittany, and then I said, how could I, Sherry spoke at church, and it turned into me saying, like, let me volunteer, because I want to put myself in proximity to these people group, and especially to Danny, of like, there's something that you're doing. I need to be around you because I need to figure it out. And it turned into a job, and here we go, almost 4 years later, and I'm way better for it.
And to that point,
Wow, it's been 4 years.
We're just going to spend a few minutes talking about Danny, okay? We're just going to talk about Danny for a few minutes
Okay,
in this podcast.
Come on. Say it again.
Because he is also a word of affirmation.
Let's just do this the whole time.
I like you because you're awesome because. But I as we're preparing for this one, and I'm thinking about it, and just the conversation happening here, I think about my nan. So my nan really was the matriarch of our family. She's my mother's mom. I'm from Australia. And, so being from Australia, I had left to move to a faraway land. And there's all these, not complications, but just all this emotion comes with moving that far away from your family and the different things you have to adjust and learn and change. And so, it's hard for my family at times to think, Ben's so far away, he got married, he had children, and we're missing so much of it, which is just the reality. At the same time, I remember this day just thinking about this process and the life we live that I'm so thankful for that I wouldn't change. And my nan looked at me and she said, "I'm so thankful that you met Danny Silk." And I was thinking about crying, and I'm like, I'm not going to cry. I can feel it coming. But she said that there's things that God has built inside of you because of Danny Silk that you would have never gotten.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what you said in the beginning of this episode, Danny. But it's the same thing that I think there's men that God's going to bring into my life, and I don't want to miss it. I want to make sure I squeeze every bit of that sponge out, so to say. And so I'm sitting here today on this podcast having this conversation, much due to your influence in my life. And just thinking about just the things the Lord does. He knows what he's doing, and he knows what we need. But to have the matriarch of our family, look at me in a faraway land and say, God sent you there because he knew what he was doing. He knew what you needed.
Yeah.
It's just powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, that is good stuff. I think the man lessons or the father lessons that we get from being around other men is a gift to our children, a gift to our sons and our daughters. And I think it starts there. If you're going to do a good job as a father, you have to learn how to be a good son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that those relationships with these men that they speak life, they speak strength, they speak destiny. They also speak course, like you're off course, you're on course. They will speak to you and say, well done, carry on, or you're blowing it, dude.
Yeah.
You need to change course. Here's how you do that. You're not the first one to suffer from YMD. YMD is a thing. It's real.
I had it bad.
Young man disorder is a real thing. Pull up. You're going to hit the mountain. Land this thing. You're going to run out of gas. Listen to me. Right. And if as I absorb that as a young man, I am decades ahead of my learning curve because I'm putting to use the wisdom of a man who probably had to live it.
Yeah.
He probably, if he lifted up his shirt, there's scars on that man.
It's bullet holes.
I don't have to have the scars. I can learn from another man's mistakes and put them to use to serve the environment around me.
And there's, I had this thought when you were talking, there's probably some guys listening right now who kind of say, well, I'm not around Danny, so if I was around, I'd go figure, you're wondering where that guy is for you. It doesn't feel like they're there, but they are. And it's going to require you to do some praying. I mean, I remember praying for this thing. My wife knows, praying for a male mentor type of relationship for years before it happened. But not until I pursued it and said, I'm going to start taking action, which prayer is great. It helps. But I was like, okay, let me partner you with it and move out in faith, and let me go just put myself around you and see if I can't wiggle my way in there. And I got in. But there's, and there's quality. The world would have you think otherwise, but there are mighty men of God all around this world. And there is one perfectly placed around you if you feel like you're void of a father figure or a mentor or a brother. They're there. It's going to require some fishing maybe on your part and some vulnerability and to take a step. But just what Danny was saying, it's so worth it because the quality of your life increases exponentially, and those lessons that that person's learned and those bullet holes and those stab wounds and all those things that they can impart if you're willing to listen and speak into have them speak into your life is going to be so fruitful. And the last thing I want to say about that too is it's also not going to look like a course probably. It's not like when I hang around Danny, he's like, okay, we're on chapter 2 of you being a man. It's go to sub point 3 and we're working on this today. It's more like, hey, Danny, I'm dealing with this right now. What do you think about that? Or he watches me spiral and he goes, hey, I've been watching you kind of do this thing.
It's the actual conversation.
How are you doing over there? I was like, I'm not doing good. Yeah, I thought not.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. So there's going to be, I just want to encourage men out there. There's a guy out there who will take the responsibility of mentoring and fathering you, but it's going to take some faith, which is spelled RISK, right? You're going to put yourself out there and maybe ask some guy. So I would just, that be a prayer. We're praying that for you, but maybe just be praying. God highlight someone for you to connect with.
It's also going to take some humility, I think.
Yeah.
Because when you said that there's a man who's probably gone through it, they can help you not make the same mistake. There's this thing that almost lit up in me. I think men carry around of, I should learn that by myself. I should have to learn that and wrestle through that thing and say I did it, and there is those things coming your way as a man. Like you will have that thing to give to your sons, but there is certain things you didn't have to wrestle through.
Yeah.
Like someone's done that already. Someone's already got that wound to teach you from.
Yeah.
And I think so. If that pride thing showing up as we're talking, that's a great flag for you to go. Let's insert some humility and get some grace, and then go find that man.
Well, to touch on that point, the feeling of I'm doing it on my own, that gets perpetuated by a culture of orphan older brothers. Of I did this on my own, no one helped me, check me out, self-made millionaire, self-made everything, and they're sitting there looking for the affirmation and the admiration of people because they've just struggled, but they're still broken in a lot of ways. And healthy culture, a healthy father would be the first to tell you, I did not get here on my own. I am not a self-made millionaire. I'm not a this or that.
I owe this to all these people.
Totally. And that going back to us training, building an army of fathers in a fatherless generation is going to come on men to stepping up and sharing truth. And that's a truth that you're going to be better when you submit yourself to other men and let them speak into you and humble yourself, as Ben was saying, to their insights and their wisdom. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
So guys, as fathers, what would you say it looks like to protect, provide, and connect for your children?
I can start.
Sure.
Lots of thoughts I'm sure flowing right now at this table, but I think I'll answer a little bit differently maybe than is expected. But I think the protect one, the first thing I think of isn't the person coming in my house in the boxer shorts at midnight, which happened. And Brittany yelling,
Grab the fork.
There's someone in the house. It was either a fork, a plate, or a wine glass. So we went with the fork.
Kitchenware, get it.
Yeah.
He's like, you're freaking me out. You're freaking me out. I was scared, but I still went. So that's a whole different...
Is that a semi-automatic fork? Or is that a fully auto?
I'm not afraid to use this fork. I was going somewhere with that. You got stuck on Todd. His name's Todd. That's part of it. But really, it's also protecting them from me. I think a huge part of our story with Brittany is protecting her and protecting my kids from me, from my own insecurities, my own pain. When I start leading from that place, I'm even making decisions to get something from them. It's not helpful. I think the provide piece for me, the natural thing we think of provision is a huge deal, and that's this constant, what Danny calls a game we're in. We're just playing the game of learning more and growing and becoming a great provider. The other piece for me with that is actually the emotional provision. As men, I have to do work on the inside to become an emotional provider for my family. So that's often the piece missing. So I'll stop there for a minute because there's more to say, but that's the things I think of right away.
For me, I wrote mine down. I'm a pretty structured, I'm like goal-oriented checklist type of thing. So that's my deal. Yeah. So every morning I read one And my mission with my boys is to prepare my boys for biblical manhood by being intentional with my time and words with them daily. And it's a reminder of every day I got to show up. And what are the 3 most important things that I do? Well, the first most important thing is I do a good job with me. They are with me all the time. They live in my house. And the biggest influence on their lives when it comes to manhood is watching what their dad does daily. It's the lessons I didn't stop to sit down and teach them. It's the things they watched how I reacted when I was angry or upset or I disagreed with their mother or something didn't happen the way I wanted it to. It's the second one is spending time with them, making memories, having fun. I look back at my childhood and most of my memories, my favorite memories with my dad, wasn't like some whim of a thing where we were doing something together, where we created a moment together. So it's like, oh, how many memories can I make with my kids before they leave the house? That's like, I'm also a pretty competitive guy, so I turn it into a game. So it's like every day, it's like, how can I make a memory today with my boys that they'll remember forever? And that's my goal. And so going back to the provide, protect, and connect is similar to Ben. There's this idea of I want to provide them some of the stuff that I wasn't afforded in my childhood. I think that's most men when they get older. They're like, I'm going to provide all the stuff that I didn't get. And it reminds me of a great story from a friend of ours, Rob. Like I just started getting connected at Jesus Culture. I met with Rob, and Rob was kind of, meeting with me, and I was like, I'm getting to learn about the church. And I was doing my normal thing where I start telling him how I'm going to provide, protect, connect, like all these great things I'm going to do for my boys. Like I'm going to do this and this. This is what I do with them. And I'm listing off all these great things. And I've only gotten one response from that when I say that. And that is, oh, that's so great. That's awesome. Your boys are so lucky. Like you're doing such a great job. I'm words of affirmation guy, so I'm going to do it more. Like, oh, this is great.
There we go.
So I say it to Rob, and Rob's response was, be careful where that's coming from. I didn't even know what to do with that. I got mad at him. I was like, should I punch this guy in the face? Like, what does that even mean? Be careful with that. But I thought about it a whole bunch because I'd met with him long enough to where I'm going to let you say something to me like that and I'll go process. And that led me on a journey of like, learning about orphan spirit, orphan mentality. And I was like, I went and got healed of that. And I remember it was a whole journey. I come back to Rob, 6-8 months later, and was like, hey, you said this to me. You might not remember it, but that changed the trajectory.
Wow.
Or I'm going to provide it. What I said I was doing for my sons didn't change. I'm still doing the same things, but it was coming from a place is because I'm their father and they're my deeply loved children. That's the only reason I'm going to do all this stuff for them. Not because I'm trying to make up for an orphaned experience and a broken heart that I had as a kid. And that shift has changed everything for me. And so now with that lens of how do I do that for my boys? That's the thing I'm trying to provide. Is like, I don't want you to have to relearn that lesson that dad learned. I remember talking to you about that, Danny. It was like, there were some hard things in my life and there was some great characteristic traits. There was also some brokenness that came out of it. So I remember asking you like, how do I do for my boys, this thing that makes life difficult enough where they build resilience and grit and all the things that they're going to need to be a man, but not create the brokenness and the hurt that came with my lessons of how I, discovered that. And you effectively said it was what I took out of it was 2 answers, or 2-part was one, you said you're going to have to manufacture it. You're going to have to manufacture the heart and create situations that are age appropriate, that are hard for them to go through, that are going to create resilience and create the character you want in them. And then all throughout that is connection. You have to stay connected to the heart. And so in that provide, protect, connect, that's what I'm trying to do is set them up for biblical manhood by fathering them and mentoring them and loving them and being their buddy and, and at the same time giving them tough feedback, all while knowing their hearts deeply and making sure that they know I love them just because they're my boys.
I think we're all in different stages of being fathers and with the ages of our children. And I think that consistency around that connection, around I'll keep that a priority. No matter what happens, I'll keep that as a priority. And when they're little, it even, it's just, it feels like 100% one-sided. Like you're just, you just are the dad and you're just doing the stuff, and they're like crazy. They're just crazy. They're like pooping themselves and throwing food and running out in the street. And you're like, what is happening here? And eventually, there's a, this two-way, I think it's that 5-year-old to 12-year-old thing where they just, that was so much fun. Those were our backpacking years. That was for me. Those were we were snowboarding. It just felt so fun. They were my favorite people to hang out with, And then they go get friends, and then they just kind of dissipate into their identity formation years, and then they're totally distracted with this young adult life. They're just like, do I even have a dad? Right? Who are, this kind of goes out, and then there's when Britt decides to get married, you're like, oh my gosh, she's replacing me. I'm now number 2.
This guy.
What the heck?
Yeah.
And the reformation of the role of father that happens over time is it really takes that commitment to connect, reconnect, connect. It never is stagnant. It's just constantly under challenge. So I think that that's the one that really stands out to me. I appreciate what you guys just talked about, protection and provision, and I agree, all that. Amen. Good stuff. I said recently, I don't remember which time, I mean, maybe it was when Britt and I opened this up, but I said that, loving your children's mother is probably the foundation of what you can give them.
Yeah.
Like creating an environment where there's a team in the leadership of their life, where there's not a breakdown of authority, example, consistency, security, identity, but there's actually a unified effort. What do you guys think about that?
Agree. I'll keep mine. I'll keep mine short.
Amen.
Super helpful going back to concentric circles. This idea of God's at the middle. The next circle out is my wife, and then my boys. I mentioned earlier those daily missions I read, and I purposely place them. My first mission is how me and God. I read that one first, and then the next one is me and my wife, and then I read the one with me and my sons. And it's a reminder to me every day that is the order, and it's something that becomes an overflow of my life. That my boys go, oh, I know where I'm at. I know that I'm loved, and my dad loves me, but that dude really loves mom. She's on one circle in on us, and that is very clear to us.
Mom wins again.
Mom wins again.
Yeah. I was thinking about the instability that comes to a home when this isn't a priority. Like what happens to the hearts of even the wife and the kids. Our early years, which we've talked about lots of times on this podcast and the other one, Imperfect Parenting, is, I was faced with really kind of the dragon that has followed my family a little bit, the man in my family, which is we choose passivity to protect ourselves. This is how we stay alive with these women around us. And I think it wasn't until I realized I am creating the mess that I don't want to live in, and that is just creating havoc for my wife and then my children. They didn't have the strength that they need. So when I re-engaged first in my marriage at the level that's required and that's needed, it just changed the ingredients of the home, and just it really inserted what was needed. So I think the instability that shows up when there's lots of parents having a hard time in the marriage or whatever it is, that they turn to the kids. and often they're getting their own needs met from the children, or that's where they feel like they're winning. So they put all their attention on the kids. There's still instability in that. So I think
good.
There's a building an alliance.
Yeah,
It's like me and you against her.
totally.
And if I can get you guys over here with me, then you guys protect me.
Yeah, horrible.
You guys protect me, and I'll play the role of the victim, and automatically we make mom the bad guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, like oops.
you're not going to
redo.
like where that goes.
Yeah, this is a tomorrow you're not going to want to live in.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen. Well, that's a good conversation. We're going to take a break and come back and answer a couple of our audience's questions.
Come on.
Awesome. We want to tell you a truly inspirational story. In 1997, starting with nothing but their faith, Steve and Kathy Horner sold everything and moved from Weaverville, California to Tijuana, embarking on a journey to create an orphanage. Since then, over 5,000 children have been rescued, loved, and restored through the mission's radical faith-based approach. And now, over 30 years later, Jimmy and Gina Horner, their children, are continuing to fight, believing that the church can create an orphanless world.
They are transforming nations one child at a time, and you can be a part of this incredible mission by joining the mission's sponsor program. For just $30 a month donation, this directly helps the children's needs and allowing the mission to create an extended community of care around these kids. By joining the sponsorship program, you'll receive a monthly newsletter, which I love to get, and updates on the kids that you're sponsoring. And these kids that you're sponsoring come from all over the world, Mexico, Romania, and Nicaragua. I mean, they're providing services like orphan care, after-school programs. They are doing all sorts of amazing things to help better these children.
We are believing with them that within our lifetime, an orphanless world is possible. And every contribution brings us closer to that reality. Your generosity can change lives and transform nations.
It's as easy as visiting this website, www.themission.org/sponsor. This is how you become a sponsor for a child today. Just remember, we are partnering with the mission and helping create whole, healthy people that create whole, healthy families.
All right, we're back, and we've got questions coming in that our audience just tracks us down. They DM us, direct message, I guess.
It took me a long time to understand what that meant.
DM, direct message me at Danny Loving on Purpose on Instagram or Brittany Serpell on the same. I guess that goes to Facebook too. I'm not getting a nod or, I don't remember. Instagram for sure.
Yep.
So
That's the safest.
yeah, if you have any questions about family or life or anything that you heard us talk about on the KYLO Show, this is the place to get your questions submitted. First question, gentlemen. What would you say to husbands, fathers dealing with divorce or situations where they have limited access to their kids or control over the environment their kids are in? How can they be good dads in this situation?
Yeah, I'm not divorced or haven't been divorced, but I grew up, in a divorced family.
Mm-hmm.
That my parents divorced when I was 6. Did the whole halftime thing for a long time, and me and my 2 brothers. But I predominantly grew up in a. Here's something we're talking about man stuff. It was interesting that my older brother moved over to live full time with my dad at 12 years old.
Mm.
I moved over to live full time with my dad at 12 years old. My brother, 4 years below me, moved over to live full time with dad at 12 years old. So there was this thing that moved us over. For me, one was a brother. Like, I just really missed my brother. I spent half time with each of my parents, but I was full time with my brother. So, but in that though, I grew up with 5 brothers. So most of my childhood, I was in a house of 6 boys. I'm one of 6 boys, and it was the best.
Mm.
Like, people knew us when we were coming around because we were rowdy and we were fun. But the thing that we got all the time was your family's so connected. These brothers love each other. You guys are just, oh man, you guys are awesome. And that led later down the line to another divorce and to a lot of brokenness and no fun. And, like you were talking about just before the break, there was a bad guy and there was a victim, and there was a hero son who wanted to be daddy to his younger brothers and start playing husband to a stepmom, and it got backwards really fast. But the dysfunction is all that I knew. So fast forward, getting healed and finding Bree and saving my life, and it was been really awesome. But all this time, my heart ached for my brothers, and there was years where I didn't talk to them. But I was listening. It was Meg Meeker, and she was talking about this for dads of divorced, who don't have access to their kids, and her number one recommendation was, you just make sure your kids know that you love them. As often as you can, as many ways as you can, tell those kids that you love them and you're thinking about them. So I grabbed onto that, and I had all my brothers' numbers at that point, and most of them are younger, and I just text them. I text them for years, a lot of times with zero response. Hey, I'm thinking about you. I love you. Hey, I'm thinking about you. I love you. Hey, I'd love you. I'd love to talk. Sometimes they'd message me back. Most times they didn't. But where this came to a nice, fun little testimony was, one Tuesday morning at 5 a.m., because apparently all Zamora men are working at 5 a.m. I looked down at my phone, which was on, do not disturb mode, which is the best mode for phones to be in. I love it.
Yeah.
But I looked down, there's literally 40 plus, almost 50 text messages. I'm like, well, that's unusually high for 5 a.m. And it was a text there with my brothers. See, our brothers, because of family things, we've all seen each other, but we were just cordial. There was a lot of hurt between all of us, but let's not talk about it. Like, let's just do the thing.
We avoid
and
each other.
we all go our separate ways.
About it. Yeah.
And so it was coming to a head on this text thread. And I read, I go read through these 40 texts, and it started off harmless joke, turned into you touched a wound, to
wanna fight?
We're fighting. Lots, and then my heart was aching because you just saw, it was very apparent that all these brothers wanted to be connected to each other, but they were so juiced up on offense and hurt that they just were attacking. My dad's in that thread too.
Ugh.
So my dad, texts me separately and says, if you can get the boys to meet somewhere, I'll pay for all of it. I said, okay. Well, because I had been sowing those seeds, I had decent relationship, enough connection to pull on where people would say like, okay. So I've talked to my older brother, who is big, high D, 8, Enneagram personality, who was out there lopping little brothers' heads off, but has the best heart. And, he was just scared too and hurt. And I talked to him and said, hey, let's get all these boys in here.
Could you put the sword away?
Yeah, put the sword down. You're freaking everybody out. But they want to hear from you. And the younger boy's like, hey, if I can get, our older brother to put the sword down, and you guys, if you show up and actually speak respectfully to him and this or that, like, will we meet? Like, let's all get somewhere. Anyways, fast forward. We're in Vegas. We tried to pick a different location. My dad picked Vegas. So we're all going to Vegas. And, we tell our wives what's going on. And they've been wanting this for years too. So, and they're also scared because they've seen the way we talk about each other and they know the history. So we all traveled to Vegas. We get there late. The last brother gets in. The 6 of us are in this, tiny little condo thing in one room. And, I'm leading the talk and said, hey guys, we can go to sleep tonight and go do fun stuff tomorrow and then have that talk, or we can just crack it open. And brother 5 goes, let's open it up tonight because I ain't doing anything fun with you tomorrow. I didn't come here to have fun. I came, he's like, basically everyone's hands on their 6 year. And they're like, we came to duel. So I'm like, okay, here we go.
We don't even need the sun up.
Yeah.
We can do it now.
But the funny and surprising thing of that all was all the boys, we couldn't have this conversation when we were kids. But all of them had become, the youngest one being 19, all of them had matured and become men to a certain degree. And then, I had one brother to lead with, hey, we're only going to use I statements. And I'm like, hey, well, that's a great tool. I was going to say that, Yeah. And so they all just took turns sharing their heart and listening and airing their grievances. And the big surprise, like for me, my older brother was like, dude, they're going to come after attack me. And I was like, I know, dude, I got you. Like, we'll step in. It turned into like, they had very little to say and they were all mad at me. But it was because it was greater hurt because we had, bigger connect. So, but anyways, we got to move through that, and like 3 or 4 straight hours of just, we call it cuss and discuss. There was just some words and this or that, and we're getting after it. And then it felt resolved.
Yeah.
And I asked, like,
we're in the light.
What do you guys need, next? And the same brother who said, I didn't come to have fun, I came to fight here, said, fun. We needed this.
Yeah.
We're good now. And I was like, just like that? I didn't want to jinx. I didn't say it in my bed. I'm going, just like that. So we're like, we're hungry.
That's all
we do a 1 a.m. run to a gas station to get like, junk food or whatever. And the whole time it's, what have you been doing in your life? And they're sharing all the things that they, so we had a lot of catching up to do. But it was just a beautiful story. But going back to that question, tying it back in, is if you're disconnected, that really worked for me as a brother, as an older brother, of just sending that message to those boys of, I love you, I care about you, which led to this huge breakthrough, years later. So hopefully it happens sooner for you than it did for me. But I'm just so glad that it happened.
Yeah.
So great.
And I think there's a lot of people listening that have that.
Yeah.
They have the ashes and the ruins of divorce, and this person hurt that person, which means I have to hurt this person, and that hurts another person, and you just keep going, and there's all this triangulation that just is endless. But as soon as somebody takes responsibility for themselves to have the goal of connection with whoever, and if we have a mess to clean up, I will go to work on my part that I can see and humble myself and offer that. And if I'm a dad and I've got a mess to clean up with my kids because of a divorce, then start there. Clean up your mess, apologize, and make connection the goal. Even if you have a spouse that's working overtime on you being the bad guy.
Yeah.
You have your own relationship with your child. They don't have your relationship with your child. You do. Yep. And if you blame, like that was a mistake my dad made, is he blamed my mom for abandoning us. And each time I saw him throughout my life, which is probably less than 10 times, he said, your mom. And then went on to justify zero energy coming from him.
Yeah.
Like, well, that doesn't change the fact that it was your job that you didn't do. It wasn't her job to do your job. She did her job, and she was very mad at you. She was very, very bitter about the divorce, but she couldn't do your job.
Right.
So please, gentlemen, start your engines, do your job in your relationship towards your kid. And then shared custody or not, however it is, you have to show up. You have to be there. It's your culture. It's your leadership. It's all that is yours, regardless of what the other spouse is doing. When they come into your sphere of authority and atmosphere, it's yours. Steward it as yours and quit blaming somebody else for the quality or the connection that you have with your children.
Yep. Just to echo the Meg Meeker, I was thinking the same thing, and you said that, so it's beautiful. Which she has a book called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. Highly recommended. Changed my life as a dad. But that, I think what she's really talking about is consistency.
Yeah.
I've talked to a few dads who, one guy, all he had was a letter. The only access he had was the ability to write a letter to his daughter. So I said, you become really consistent with that. She just receives a letter. And one day she's going to stand up and go, like the story with your brothers. She's going to come back and say, Dad, I've kept all the letters. I've read every single one. Thank you so much for doing that. A different dad was a phone call. His daughter's in a different country, and all he had was a phone call. So every Tuesday, you're calling your daughter. But it's the consistency that, regardless of the amount of access you have, you're just consistent on sending that message you're talking about, that I deeply love and value you. And that's the message coming towards you, not the bitterness, not the pain, because I've worked that thing out.
It's good.
And there's enough guys that live in the home with their kids that don't send the message.
Yeah.
That don't take responsibility for their part. They really do think that their wife is going to create a connection for them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, guys, don't let that happen, man. Just own your relationship with your child. Show up and be the dad.
Great.
All right. Next question. As a father, how can I lead in vision for my family?
That's a good one. We like this one right here.
Yeah. You have a great thing for that. But I would just real quick, when I read this question or heard this question, my quick response would be, before you have a vision for your family, or a way that you could do that is, do you have a vision for your own life?
Yeah.
I've sat down and tried to write that out and realized that if I don't have a vision for my own life, and going back to like Danny saying, if I can't lead myself well, how can I lead my family well? So for me, the beginning of that was learning to lead myself well and have a vision of, where do I actually want to go? What do I want to do with me? And then how can I add that strength to others? And then I had a really good tool for thinking about that, which I don't know, maybe you could talk about, but the vision for your family. It reminds me of I don't know if we have a course, but we had something.
do.
Yeah, we have a course about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a theme in all these episodes so far, and I think the theme is put your own oxygen mask on first, and then help your kids.
Yeah.
Make sure you can breathe before you teach them to breathe. Like, it's just this theme that feels so vital that we jump over easily. But the course, once you've put your oxygen mask on, as Christian said, the course we made a couple years ago now, it's just 4 sessions. It's something that we did as a family that really changed the direction of our family. And we called it your family culture creed. And it just runs you through 3 questions that at the end of this exercise, it pops out 3 powerful statements about, this is who we are. This is the strength of our family. This is the passion of our family. And this is our legacy, or what we'll be famous for. We've done this now with lots of families. Ours still hangs in our living room.
Yeah.
I read it this morning. It's just this thing that is a rudder, so to say. Like it's the guide rails for us as a family. Like, this is who we are, and this is how we're going to stay. And when we pop outside of that, we jump right back in. And so if you haven't ever visited Life Academy, go do that, lifeacademy.com. And on there is a course called Family Culture Creed. That would really answer this question.
Totally.
Would be helpful.
Yeah, very good. The idea of creating group identity, you know, to be able to say to your kids, hey, you know, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Hey, here's what we always do. And to have that as a consistent response in your home. That's what you're doing. You're creating culture. You're creating. You're welcoming them in. You're training them to who we are. That goes on to identify the value of our relationships. Like, these are different relationships that I have on earth than with anybody. Is, you know, I am a Silk, I am a Serpell, I am a Zamora. I am that. I brought that with me, so that when you get married and you build this new family, you protect your relationship with your group identity, your family. If you don't, it's very optional to sever your relationship in a marriage. Which I think is the battle with in-laws, is we feel severed, we feel diminished, we feel like we lost something we worked our whole life to protect, which is our group identity. So it is a tricky part of the other side of marriage, is how do I integrate my spouse with this value that I have? And you're doing it with your kids, and the person you married did it with their kids, and your kids will do it with, you know, with their spouse, you know. So there is be sure that your vision is big enough for that.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to involve other families. There's going to be, you know, other cultures. And in this day and age, it's not difficult at all to marry a guy from another country. you know?
Like Australia,
Yeah, like Australia,
for example.
for example.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's 100% that they're going to marry somebody from another culture,
Yeah.
because every family has one. Even if you were raised by your grandparents,
Yeah.
Yep.
there's a culture there.
As a culture.
That's good. I think there's the trap in that too when you're starting to invite people in would be that you try to get through the goal of writing something down or finishing the task of like, this is our family's vision and I'm leading in it because I'm the one who said what it was and I'm going to teach you guys how to do this vision. And I'm not speaking from experience or that I've done it before. Just this other guy. But no, just the beauty of learning, you know, the lesson of inviting everyone in and going at the pace that's needed to actually capture the heart and the dreams and the vision that my wife wants to bring and that my young sons, even at 10 and 8, you know, Justice isn't talking yet. He's 1 month old, but, you know, but he'll have a say when he comes around, you know? Yeah. But hearing about what they want to do and this ownership, and that's what I love about the course, because you do it together.
Yeah.
And that's what creates a culture that everyone wants to be in and they feel tied to, that will last. Not this thing that was forced on me when I was living at home, but this thing that was a part of, that's become part of who I am. That, you know, I've talked about it lately with my boys. One of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to push our culture and the things I want them to have in their lives so deep. I'm actually not thinking about my boys anymore. I'm thinking about my great grandkids. How do I saturate them so much with this that the outflow of their life is going to pour down for generations? And when you kind of have that goal, it's like, okay, I can't just force my boys to do what I want them to do, or maybe I can, that they'll do it begrudgingly and they'll stop the minute they leave. But when I invite them in and ask them to say, you know, what's your part in this and what do we do? It also just reminds me of a fun thing that it happens whether you know it or not. And this is exciting. I talked to the boys about being leaders. That's one of our, you know, things. Like, hey, Zamoras are leaders. We're leaders. And the boys talk about, our boys have gotten leadership awards and this or that. And I sent a text, you know, to our Zamora family thread. It's called Z Tribe. And the minute I sent the text of my boys with their leadership awards, my grandmother, who moved here from the Philippines, and my grandfather right away said, "That's right, Zamoras are leaders." And I was like, that's where that came from. You know, it's way back there. Wow. You know, so like, I thought this was some original thought. It's like, no, this has been part of our culture. It's really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, it takes a concerted effort to create a vision, and a vision will continue to change, not like at its core values, but, you know, a car with headlights on at night, what you see changes. If the car's moving, what you see is changing. And the faster the car is moving, the faster what you see is changing. And that is a vision, meaning that it has to be pliable, it has to be adoptable, because what you put in your ability to see is going to change. Yeah. You just had no idea that Ben Serpell was coming along. You know, when they were dancing on the table singing "Baby, Baby," you had no idea what was coming your way, baby.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. This is awesome.
So good.
Like I said, two of the best fathers I know.
Boom.
Come on.
There you have it. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Never miss an episode of The KYLO Show by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on the Loving on Purpose YouTube channel. Don't forget to submit your questions and testimonies to thekyloshow.com. The KYLO Show is produced by Ali Armerding, co-produced by Ashley Beck and Anna Hill, sound engineered and edited by Taylor Silk, and show promoter Christian Zamora. Don't forget, whole healthy families, gonna save the world.